We will begin the ceremony of the signing of the Treaty on Maritime Boundaries between Timor Leste and Australia, and the treaty will be signed by Her Excellency the Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Commonwealth of Australia and His Excellency the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister for the Limitation of Borders of the Democratic Republic of the Timor Leste. May I now invite Ambassador Taxon Jensen to sign as Chair of the Commission. I would like now to give the floor to the Secretary General of the United Nations for his remarks.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first of all to say that this is a particularly important day for me. One of my most important motivations in my political career in the past was the self-determination of the people of East Timor. And it was with an enormous joy that I was present the day East Timor became an independent country. To see this ceremony is like the complement of that day. And to be here today is an enormous privilege and fills my heart with joy. This ceremony demonstrates the strength of international law and the effectiveness of resolving disputes through peaceful means. A central element in the Charter of the United Nations, the peaceful settlement of disputes, is also a cornerstone of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, to which both Australia and Timor-Leste are parties. This event is historic, as it marks the successful conclusion of the first ever conciliation proceedings under Annex 5 to the Convention. I congratulate both parties and the Conciliation Commission for their constructive engagement and relentless efforts to achieve an outcome that is agreeable to both states. And I also congratulate the governments of the Commonwealth of Australia and Timor-Leste for the groundbreaking recourse to this reconciliation mechanism. In doing so, you have furthered the vision of the drafters of the Convention to provide a flexible approach to the resolution of disputes. I trust that your example will inspire other states to consider conciliation as a viable alternative for dispute settlement under the Convention. The agreement being signed today is a further contribution to establishing legal certainty in the world's oceans an essential condition for stable relations, peace and security, and the achievement of sustainable development. By delimiting the maritime boundary between Australia and Timor-Leste in the Timor Sea, and by establishing a special regime for the area comprising the Great Sunrise gas field, this agreement puts Australia and Timor-Leste in a better position to exercise their respective rights and obligations under the Convention in an effective manner. It should also ensure that both states fully benefit from the sustainable exploitation of natural resources in the Timor Sea. I again salute the vision and determination of Australia and Timor-Leste in making this agreement possible. I hope that this successful implementation will inspire other states to follow in your footsteps. Sincere congratulations and thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his remarks, and I would now give the floor to Ambassador Peter Taxo Jensen, the Commission Chair.
Secretary General, Ministers, Legal Counsel, ladies and gentlemen, on the afternoon of the 10th of June 2016, I received a fateful call from the PCA. They told me that the PCA was administering the first ever conciliation under the Law of the Sea Convention. They asked whether I would be willing to serve as the chairman of the Conciliation Commission. I agreed, but I must say that I had no idea what I was getting into. But neither did Timor-Leste when it decided to initiate this groundbreaking process. Nor could Australia have realized at that time that a mechanism labeled compulsory would actually turn out to be an opportunity to be embraced with open arms. It would provide a means to finally resolve the long-standing maritime boundary dispute and re-establish a strong friendship with its close neighbor. This required a bit of a leap of faith. Conciliation was a brave new world for all of us, even for those of my fellow commissioners over here who have spent most of their careers at the UN, the International Court of Justice, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, the International Law Commission, the International Maritime Organization, and on countless international arbitration tribunals. Yet, looking back, the faith was key. I think it was Minister Arjo or maybe Ambassador Abel who told me a story about an elder in the village who made a prophecy that Shanana would lead his people to independence. The prophet told him not to worry, just to carry on, and it would all work out. I have needed 4 prophets on the Commission and 2 disciples from the PCA to keep the faith. But I must thank them for defining our mission at every turn by optimism and by the determination that, while sibling states may quarrel, this cannot prevail over the basic friendship between 2 peoples. Exhibit A. In the recent Australian Foreign Policy White Paper, the word partners or partnerships appear 182 times, but the word friendship only appears once in the section speaking of Timor-Leste and on the treaty that we are here to sign today. You may eventually read some of our reflections on this groundbreaking process in the Commission's report, but I can already preview that this sense of common mission was the most crucial ingredient of the process. A deep bond, a sincere desire to attack and resolve the issues together, and a constant effort to build back the trust and camaraderie that has always been but an inch below the surface. Before I close, I'm bound to recall one of Shanana's famous quotes: "Reality is man-made." That could not be more true here. This historic agreement has been made possible only by the dedication and hard work of the members of the 2 states' delegations. It was made possible only by the courage shown by the Chief Negotiator for Timor-Leste, Shanana Gusmao himself, by the Honourable Julie Bishop, by Minister Arjo Pereira, by Gary Quinlan, and by all the members of their teams who are too numerous to mention by name. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your perseverance through these difficult points in this process, and thank you for your courage in taking the difficult decisions and forging the compromises necessary to reach this agreement. At various points in this process, we have needed to use animal metaphors to be able to abstract and discuss some of the difficult issues. These metaphors have included elephants of the African and Asian persuasions. Those same elephants have been climbing trees up and down. We have had Singaporean merlions standing guard. We have seen drive buffaloes getting wet. And at one point, the Timor Sea even became a polar bear conservation area. So bear with me one last time. If, as they say, it takes two to tango, then I'm glad that we have wound up with crocodiles dancing together with kangaroos. On behalf of the Conciliation Commission, we are proud to be part of this new reality of a fully sovereign Timor-Leste walking hand in hand with Australia to face the challenges of our time. May both states continue to demonstrate the leadership they have, and may other states take inspiration to potentially make use of this conciliation mechanism. Thank you for your attention.
I thank Ambassador Taxo Jensen for his remarks, and I would now invite Her Excellency Ms. Julie Bishop, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Commonwealth of Australia, to take.
Thank you, Under Secretary General. Minister Pereira, Secretary General, Commissioners, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to have signed our Maritime Boundary Treaty with Australia alongside our good friend and neighbour Timor-Leste. I thank the United Nations Secretary General for his presence here today and for his words of encouragement and support. This is an historic day for both our nations. We recognise that it is a particularly important day for Timor-Leste and another step forward in Timor's journey as a sovereign nation. The United Nations is a fitting location for this auspicious landmark event. The UN plays the leading role in the system of international rules and institutions that allow states to coexist peacefully and prosper together. As we said in Australia's Foreign Policy White Paper, released late last year, Australia believes the international rules-based order is fundamental to our collective security and prosperity. Our treaty reflects the value and importance of those rules and institutions and the benefits for states in abiding by those rules. In particular, our treaty reflects the importance of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. As a maritime trading nation, Australia will continue to be a staunch supporter of UNCLOS and its dispute settlement processes. This treaty was the result of the first ever UNCLOS conciliation. Like any negotiation, it required compromise and goodwill on both sides. By signing this treaty, both governments have judged it has delivered a fair and equitable outcome. The conciliation shows how international law can enable countries to resolve their disputes peacefully. It is an example for all of how the international rules-based order serves our collective interests. Much of this outcome is due to the crucial work of the Independent Conciliation Commission, members of which are present here today. On behalf of Australia, I thank you for your efforts and your dedication over the past 20 months and for your utmost independence and integrity. The conciliation was Timor-Leste's proposal. Australia has participated since the outset, and I was pleased to have been personally involved in the process. Timor-Leste and Australia each recommended 2 members of the Commission, and the chair was chosen by the other commissioners under the auspices of the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Australia and Timor-Leste are honoured that such eminent diplomats, legal scholars and jurists enlisted in our cause. The Commission drew on its own independent technical advice. The Commissioners have each played an objective, forthright and rigorously independent role. I also thank the Permanent Court of Arbitration for its role in supporting the Commission and for the hard work of its staff. Since 1899, the Permanent Court of Arbitration has played a crucial, if often understated, role in the international legal framework, helping states and other parties resolve disputes alongside other forms of dispute resolution. Australia is pleased to see the PCA's role strengthening and expanding, and on the basis of today's achievement, we look to its future work being even more influential in supporting the international system. With this treaty, we open a new chapter in relations between Australia and Timor-Leste. Australia has an enduring interest in a stable and prosperous Timor-Leste. As good friends and close neighbours, we want Timor-Leste to achieve its economic potential. We have historical and geographical ties and deep people-to-people links, which we will continue to nurture. We will continue our support for Timor-Leste's economic and human development. The treaty is an important step that opens the way to develop a rich shared resource, the Greater Sunrise gas fields. We know this resource is crucial to Timor-Leste's development. As is apparent, the development of this resource will deliver significant benefit to Timor-Leste. This will require support of the private sector oil and gas joint venture partners whose capacity to develop and operate the project will depend on its economic viability. We look forward to the release of the Commission's independent report and its analysis of the options to develop Greater Sunrise. We also look forward to collaborating with Timor-Leste as it works with the joint venture companies to find an economically viable pathway to develop Greater Sunrise. Together we can now ensure that Timor-Leste reaps the economic and social benefits for generations to come. This treaty reflects a new chapter in Australia-Timor-Leste relations. Congratulations to all involved in this process.
I thank the Minister for her words, and I would now invite His Excellency Mr. Cabral Pereira, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister for the Delimitation of Borders of the Democratic Republic of Timor Leste.
Thank you, Secretary. Excellency, Engineer António Guterres, Secretary General, great friend of Timor Leste. Excellency, Ambassador Peter Taxo Jensen, Chairman, Reconciliation Commission, Dr. Rosalie, Jazz Koroma, Professor McRae, and Jazz Wolfram, Commissioners, Her Excellency, our good friend, Foreign Minister, Bishop, Deputy Secretary, Gary Quinlan, Chief Negotiator of the Australian Delegation, Her Excellency Gillian Burr, Permanent Representative of Australia to the United Nations, Peter Roberts, Australian Ambassador to Timor-Leste, and Mr. John Reid, Agent for Australia. May I also welcome Dr. Aurelio Guterres, His Excellency Foreign Minister, my colleague, Her Excellency Ambassador Milena Pires, our representative here for the United Nations, and Ambassador António Guterres, our ambassador for Australia. As has been also reiterated by Secretary General, Minister, Bishop, and Chairman, Ambassador, today is indeed a momentous day that will be recorded in Timor-Leste's history and be remembered and celebrated. We are especially pleased to be here today before Your Excellency, our good friend of our people, Secretary General, who have said in his introduction, he played a pivotal role in the independence of our people and nation. You made bold moves, Secretary General, to help our struggle to independence many years ago, something we remain grateful for. 23 months ago, Timor-Leste initiated a never-before activated mechanism within the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea to seek the delimitation of a permanent maritime boundary between Timor-Leste and Australia in the Timor Sea. Compulsory conciliation, as it is known, was an unproven procedure, and we were, I must confess, reluctant to be the test case. Nevertheless, we were advised by leading experts in international law that this was our one and only recourse, given the circumstances of the disagreement between Timor-Leste and our close neighbor and friend. So we embark upon the process with no small amount of uncertainty, but also anticipation. This was, but no longer, uncharted territory. The Conciliation Commission was constituted to help Timor-Leste and Australia reach an agreement on maritime boundaries. Thanks to the committed engagement of the Australian government to this process and the invaluable facilitation of the Conciliation Commission, this has now been achieved. We look forward to continue the important discussions regarding the successful development of Greater Sunrise, as Minister Bishop alluded us to. We are most grateful to the commissioners and their advisors, each of whom perform extraordinary work in helping to frame several development concepts which will surely inform further discussions between the parties. These negotiations have been tough. They were not meant to be easy, and important to both Australia and Timor-Leste to achieve successful result. In the end, this process has indeed been a success. The Timor-Leste team, the Australian team, the Honourable Commissioners, and the representatives of Permanent Court of Arbitration worked tirelessly throughout the process to shape an outcome that would reflect the principles of international law and that would be equitable and sustainable. As we stand here today, I am acutely appreciative of the fact that we have arrived at this historic moment owing to the tremendous dedication of the leadership of both Timor-Leste and Australia to this process and to the immense efforts of the Conciliation Commission. I want to thank Her Excellency Minister Julie Bishop for all her efforts to help us go through. The commitment that the Australian government demonstrated to the process, your constructive engagement, made it possible for us to conclude this treaty within the short time frame of the conciliation. I also want to express my personal gratitude for the graciousness you have shown me and my colleagues. It is impossible to overstate the role of the Conciliation Commission and the immense contribution of the commissioners, each one an expert and leading light in his and her respective fields. Dr. Rosalie Bakken, Jaz Abdul Koroma, Professor Donald McCray, Judge Rudiger Wolfram, and the Commission Chairman, His Excellency Ambassador Peter Taxo Jensen, who brought his legal expertise, his supreme diplomatic skills, and his Nordic determination to bear to drive the conciliation to a productive result of both parties. We are in debt to you. We thank also our chief negotiator, Kairala Sanana Guzmão, for his wisdom and leadership. Although he is unable to be here today, he is here with us in spirit. Timor-Leste is a strong believer in international law and a faithful supporter of multilateral systems. As a nation modest in population and size, we hold tight to the basic principle of the equality of states. Throughout Timor-Leste's history, we have employed multilateral systems to pursue our just cause, to gain independence for our country. Today, we continue to lean on the international system to complete our sovereignty. Timor-Leste, therefore, takes our membership in UNCLOS seriously and are fully conscious of our duties enshrined in UNCLOS and in the bilateral agreement into which we enter today. The treaty we sign is a good treaty. It is equitable, forward-looking treaty delimiting a permanent maritime boundary in the Timor Sea, guided by the principle of achieving an equitable solution. This treaty establishes a special regime for the Greater Sunrise gas field and a pathway to the development of the resource. The conclusion of this treaty now clarifies the rights and responsibilities of Timor-Leste and Australia with regard to the resources and activities that fall within our respective sovereign territories. This treaty also institutes certainty in the interest of investment and economic development. In the process of forging this agreement, Timor-Leste and Australia have developed a deeper mutual understanding and greater mutual respect. With the signing of this treaty today, we write a new chapter in the friendship between our two countries. Timor-Leste and Australia are friends and neighbors. Excellencies, dear friends, this is an important new beginning. I look forward to our two countries working together in the future for the advancement and prosperity of our people, nations, and region. Thank you.
This will now conclude our signing ceremony. I thank the interventions of your excellencies and your presence here today. Thank you. Let's hope it's the venue. The first of May.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Different.